last year, sadly, we lost Beetle, but I've now acquired 2 little puppies, and they took quite a bit of searching. And you might not think that these little scruffs took a lot of looking for, but I tell you they did. I love my garden and I love sharing it with people and, of course, with my dogs. And in order for it to be a harmonious relationship, there are certain things that you need to take into account. Now, we've had Jack Russels. This is probably our 6th and 7th Jack Russell or Jack Russell types that we've had. And they just suit us really well because they just bond with you. They're very easy, they've got personality, and they're just great friends. But when you choose a breed of dog, I don't think everyone realises that actually different breeds have vastly different characteristics. A friend of mine's got a sight hound, a whippet, beautiful dog. But you know, one day she'll open the door and it'll see something down the street and it'll be off before you can say knife. They seem to have sort of 2 speeds. Fast asleep or like rockets, and that's fine if you can cope with that, but I find that quite difficult. So also I like the fact that they're small. I think that works really well, but most importantly I think it's the breed line. Now, a friend of mine put me on to this breeder, and you might not think they're very specially bred, but they've got a Jack Russell in them. Their father is Boris, that's also the father of one of my friend's dogs. And because he's breeding this line, I think, for 19 years, what I like about the trait they've got is that they don't wander off. These are very homely type dogs, because Jack Russells, in my experience, can be the type that will disappear and come back when they fancy it, or they stay around. And Beatle was definitely a stay-arounder. And that was grand, but that was just pot luck. But these 2, I don't know where they've gone now. They've gone to prove a point that they don't stay around, but they are probably in the hedge over there. And their ancestors, in their lineage, they seem to hang around. And also, I think the difference in vets' bills between these more sort of tough little, slightly mixed heritage dogs, they do seem to demand far less in vets' fees and things, because they are tough little numbers. I suppose the first off, when you get a puppy, and that's the thing, do you get 1 puppy or do you get 2 puppies? And I always think it's really nice if you can have a pair of dogs, because they don't like being left on their own much. We don't leave ours much, there's nearly always someone around, but if they are, I think it's very much nice for them to have a mate to chat to. But of course not everyone can cope with 2 dogs, but generally I think they're much easier as a pair. And it's more fun for them and it's more fun for you. But when you bring them back, first off, the first thing I suppose you address is house training. And I have to say, the first night I came down, and there was quite a lot of mess all over the floor. And then the second night, when they'd been there and they'd got used to going outside and pooing and weeing outside, there was nothing there. I could not believe it. But I have got these funny pad things because we inherited some from someone, and they are good. If they want a wee, they tend to go on that, or they'll much rather do it outside. Now, because I don't want my lawn, and they are bitches, covered with little yellow spots, I probably won't go down the dog rocks routes, where you put dog rocks in their water and it changes, I think, the ketone balance of their wee, and so it doesn't stain the lawn. I find they normally lift them out, so you have to put them in a jug and then pour the water out from the jug. I tend to just start training them to go to the loo in a place I want them to. And so I will take them out there as a thing first thing in the morning, and it's a sort of little woodland patch and it's brilliant for them. And they get used to that and they would much rather do that. My daughter's dog won't do a wee in her garden at all. She has to go outside and do it somewhere outside. So they do have their strong likes and dislikes. So that's the first thing. So I obviously, you like them to be house clean as quick as you can. It's nice when they come to their call, because that's pretty essential. And sit, some people like them to sit, which is fine. I'm not particularly fussed, as long as they come when they called and they wee in the right place, that's fine. And if you've got a small garden, what a client of mine did is he built a little wooden pit. So he got a pit that was about 300 by 300 and it was about 500 deep. He made it out of plywood. He dug a hole in the ground and sunk it into the ground, so he just had this hollow square at the top with a bit of wood over so he didn't fall down it, and he always put the dog poo down there. And he had two massive big dogs, but strangely it never filled up, it just composted down and down and down. And so that's what some people do with their dog poo. Those do it in the wood, so it doesn't really matter. Getting them to go where you want, I think, is quite useful, especially if you've got a small garden. And the other thing, I think, is not going on flower beds. So these two will go out gardening this weekend, and I'll go on the flower bed to weed or do something or other. They'll follow me on, and I'll just push them off gently. And we'll go on and on doing that. And they'll want to come to me on the flower bed usually, and just push them off. And usually by the end of the day, they've got the habit. And they can differentiate, I find, between flower beds and grass and paths quite quickly. I think dogs are much brighter than we think. Now, I think a lot of problems happen with dogs when they start to get bored. And if you've got two, obviously it's much more helpful. These two play together already. They're pulling toys away from each other and things like that. And I've ordered some balls for them, which they will enjoy, no doubt, and things like that. But these aren't, they're a sort of working dog, but they're not a working dog like a spaniel. My sister has a spaniel, and unless they're kept really occupied and they're busy, they're not happy. And I think you must realise with your choice of breed that if you've got all the time in the world to devote for it and you can use it to do what it likes, like working and retrieving like a spaniel, then that's fine. But if you can't, then maybe a more easier breed like this. I mean, I think all Jack Russells want to do really is be with you, whatever you're doing. A lorry driver friend of mine, he had one, and Peter went in his cab all day, every day, and he loved it. He was as happy as Larry. He was out doing stuff. And I think that is generally the trait of the Jack Russells. They just want to be with you. Whereas my son's dog is a part poodle. It's a Jackapoo, Jack Russell crossed with a poodle, and it's lovely. But that breed, the poodle breed, seems to always want to be with you. So when it comes to say with us, if I go from one room to the other, it follows you like a little shadow everywhere. And it just worries me that when you're not there, it's stressed because it's not used to that. What we do with the game with our dogs is if I have a bone, we often have bones and things, so we'll put it on the lawn, and we've got lots of red kites around here. And the red kites, as soon as you put down a bone, they know it's there and they'll be down trying to get it. And the dogs sit there watching the bone and they come and chase the red kites off. And they would never catch them, but they just adore chasing red kites. And they'll do that for 2 hours or more in an afternoon, and then they'll be totally exhausted. Other people do things like they can get these little bubble machines that blow out beef-flavoured bubbles and chicken-flavoured bubbles, and they chase them up and catch them. So that's another good way to entertain them. And when they aren't well entertained, they get bored, and that, I think, is when the problems happen. So just bear that in mind. They dig, some dogs dig. We had a border terrier once, or my son did, and that dug holes everywhere. But what you can do with that is you can have an actual dedicated patch, and you can have a bit of soil and you can bury bones in it. And then the dog can go and find them in those areas. So just think what they're wanting and try and give it to them in a way that isn't going to affect your garden and the way you want things. Because generally, I think all they want to do is please you. One thing that all puppies like to do is chew. You know, they're just pulling their teeth through rather like babies do, and they need to chew on something. And this morning I found that our lovely dog baskets has been slightly attacked on the corner. And what I've always done for this, ever since we had a bull mastiff that attacked a huge dog basket like this, and I came down one morning and there was just a tiny little flat bit, all the sides, everything had been demolished. So what we do is rub a bit of soap on it, just get a bar of soap, moisten it a bit and rub it where they're chewing. And you might end up rubbing the whole basket. But that is a really good way to protect the basket, and I don't think it hurts them. It's just everyone knows that eating soap is not the nicest. So we often do special things for clients like the dog loos, and another client had a raised decking area in a London garden, and we made a heated kennel outside underneath the decking. So when he was out, the dog could be in the garden, but they could go into the heated kennel if they wanted. And I thought that was quite a nice solution. Because some dogs do like heat more than others. Some are quite tough, but if they're living in your house, they've probably got used to your human temperatures, so you can't then just suddenly shove them out in a kennel that's cold. And another client put in an outdoor warm shower for the dogs. These were big, big, long-haired dogs, and they'd come back from long walks. And if you've got an outdoor shower point, it's really useful just to hose them down so you don't get mud everywhere. I did work for an huge international firm that made dog food for quite a few years as a consultant, and I designed dog gardens for them and everything, and it was fascinating because they employed quite a few vets as well, and you really got to understand about the psychology of dogs, and they also bred several types of well-known dogs so that they could just see what they liked eating and things like that. So I learned a fair bit about that. One thing I learnt from a vet is that a dog feels like it's responsible for you, it's watching out for you, it's your mate. And so when you're in the room with it and it's in the basket, it's always got half an eye on you, seeing what you're going to do, and it doesn't totally relax apparently. But if you make them a bed, well, we actually have the snuggle beds, which they actually go inside, then they haven't got eye contact with you and they feel much more relaxed. So when they want downtime, they can go in there, snooze, not really be aware of you, and relax. And I think that's a really good idea. These Jack Russells certainly love their snuggle beds and use them a lot. I think quite a few people are latching onto this. Now, some breeds like Whippets seem to like them, other breeds won't go in them at all. So it's very much what the breed likes because they are so different. So those are just my first thoughts on finding a dog to suit you, getting your dog trained so they can enjoy the garden as much as you can without wrecking it. Hopefully you'll be able to watch these two beauties in my videos over the next few years.